Shalom Aleichem, a good Erev Shabbos. It's Chav Gimel Shvat. The day after the Rebbe and Chaim Mushka's Yortzeit. We'll dedicate this history, Chabad history video to her neshama. May her maisim toivim, all her good deeds and everything inspire us and bring Mashiach now. And surely she and our holy Rebbe will benefit from being with us and us with him, and Mashiach will come. So I want to continue part 2 of Chabad and Breslov that we spoke about last week. Now I want to focus on the Rebbe and his involvement with Breslov. So the Rebbe, in several places in his Siches and Likutei Siches, the references of which I'm including in my upcoming book on Chabad and Breslov, Humiliate Hashem. So over there, he refers to Rab Nachman's Seforim. In particular, it was the Farbrengen of Shabbos Pashas Nosei, 1976, the Shabbos after Shavuos. I was at that Farbrengen. It was the longest Farbrengen that I ever attended, as far as I remember. It was a 5.5-hour Farbrengen. It was Shabbos. It started at 1:30 and finished at 7 o'clock. I recall looking at the watch. It saw the 7 o'clock. Very long Farbrengen. And the reason is because Dayan Fisher of England, a big Talmud Chacham and Dayan, a Litvisher, came to the Rebbe for the first time, and he was enamored with what he heard and what he saw, and he had Yechidus with the Rebbe the previous Thursday night, and they say that he walked out sweating. Him and the Rebbe were dialoguing in the sugya, in the discussion of Ki'uli Kalim, how to kosher Kalim, and details. And the Rebbe on Shabbos continued that at great length. They had a disagreement of understanding of their understanding of the topic, and the Rebbe went to prove his point to the Dayan at the Farbrengen as well. It's since been printed in the Likutei Siches. Anyway, the Rebbe also spent like 45 minutes, long sicha, how one should learn a Rashi and Chumash. Pshuti Shel Mikra, the Rebbe's famous klal in his rules that Rashi says, I don't come, the only reason I come is to clarify the text in its literal, simple sense. The Rebbe explained what that means and how you go about it. And I remember standing there and I was saying, Rebbe, we've heard this many times from you. Why are you repeating it? And I didn't know it. At the time, I didn't even know that the Dayan Fisher was sitting behind the Rebbe. I didn't know. I mean, I saw a new individual, but I had no idea who it is. And the Rebbe basically was teaching the great Dayan, the great Litvisher Rosh Hashiva, how to learn a Rashi properly, at least from his perspective, from the Rebbe's perspective, which is the Torah perspective and the true perspective. So this was the Farbrengen I'm talking about. In the middle of Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke about korbanos sacrifices, and he says, as it's explained in the Seforim of Rab Nachman of Breslov, the practical application of korbanos to one's daily service to Hashem. And that was that Farbrengen, which I found to be interesting. I mean, I didn't realize this at the time. It's only now that I'm researching for my book that I'm writing that I came across this so many years later. I mean, what is it, 45 years later. Wow, 45 years later or so, I realized that the Rebbe made this comment when this Goyen, Dayan Fisher, was at the Farbrengen. And that itself is an interesting piece of history that could be spoken about, thought about, etc. But that's not what I want to do. What I want to talk about is the Rebbe had this interest and in the Seforim of Rab Nachman of Breslov. Now, if Rab Nachman was a pariah like the Skvera Hasidim and the Tolna Hasidim and the Savraner, Moshe Savraner, who attacked Reb Nosson of Nemarov, the prodigy student of Rab Nachman in 1835 to 1838, with writing a vicious cherem against him, which is outlandish, and it was terrible. It was really bad. Do you think if any of those accusations were real, the Rebbe would have been learning Rab Nachman's Seforim? No way. And in fact, the previous Rebbe. I believe that the reason the Rebbe latched on kind of to Reb Nachman's Seforim, he had him in his library and he had him in his office. Someone told me that the Rebbe, I think, went to take out a sefer of Reb Nachman. He had him in his office and he quotes him at the Farbrengen. And then in the Likutei Sichos, volume 6, he cites him with an edit. It's very obvious that he studied it. I believe that it's because the Frierdiker Rebbe already showed a love and interest to Reb Nachman's Seforim. And so the question is on the previous Rebbe. And the answer is that most, or if not all, of the accusations were unfounded, were false, or were gedurim. There were fences made by these tzaddikim, the Rabbi Yitzchak of Skvere, Rabbi David of Tolner, Rabbi Moshe of Savran, the Shpola Zayda. I told you last week, the Shpola Zayda, who cited in Hayom Yom by the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe brings it, who arranged the Hayom Yom, that the Shpola Zayda said that ever since the Baal Shem Tov put his hand on him when he was like 3 years old, his heart is warm. And why is the previous Rebbe and the Rebbe bringing that in Hayom Yom? To teach us that that he was such a great tzaddik that just the hand of a tzaddik or a Baal Shem Tov warms the person up for the rest of their life, and how important it is to have a tzaddik, to have a Rebbe, etc. And this very same Shpola Zayda attacks Reb Nachman after he had a good relationship with Reb Nachman. This happened, I think, in 1810 or so. So the question is, Shpola Zayda, Rabbi Moshe Savran in 1835, then in 1864, 63, 64, the Yitzchak of Skvere, Rabbi David of Tolner, as I've mentioned before, and of course, who can forget the Baruch of Mezhebus, also, who was the uncle of Reb Nachman, and initially in good terms, and then he turned against him, right? So you have 5 of these great people who go against him, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, now a Rebbe, kind of put all that aside. Now, some will say that, of course, it's, the Rebbe had this attitude that what was in the past, you forget. But I'm not saying that wasn't a shita of the Rebbe. It was overall, but over here it's something very different. There was simply things that people did not accept, and things that Lubavitch didn't accept. So I'll give you an example. Reb Nachman writes, and Reb Nosson, gave it to print later, the Tikkun HaKloli, which pretty much is a tikkun, a rectification prayer of 10 kapitla Tehillim, 10 psalms, to forgive for the atonement of sins, particularly associated with intimate matters. Now, we don't say the Tikkun HaKloli. Neither do we support kind of, you want to say Tehillim, our Rabbeim say every day, the Shir Tehillim, Shabbos V'Varchim, but we're not into Tikkun HaKloli. Then Reb Nachman and Reb Nosson talk a lot about the tikkunim, rectifications, and prayers for tikkunim. Chabad's not into that. It's a whole different system. Another example, they're into what's called Hisbodedus, Breslov, talking to Hashem in isolation, in solitude. Chabad says no. Rather than Hisbodedus, we do Hisbodedus, reflection and meditation, deep contemplation on godly ideas, brought in Chassidus, teachings, to meditate on how God is Mamalik Kol Alm, Sevav Kol Alm, and He pervades all worlds. He provides the supernatural forces of all worlds. Einod Milvadoi, what does that mean? Yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. Who is the ayin? Who is the yesh? Who is the something? Who is the nothing? What's going on here? So, in Chabad, there's a whole different ethos and philosophy and practicality of what you should do to arouse yourself to Avodas Hashem, to serving God. So to say that Breslov and Chabad are similar in these issues, they're the total opposite, completely opposite. Nevertheless, there's value to the Seforim and teachings of Reb Nachman and Reb Nosson. And the Rebbe is the one that established us. If the Rebbe would not have cited him and in the places that I told you, then we would not even probably respect that as well. We would fall into the trap of everyone else. And this is a very important message, especially in association with the Rebbe Chaya Bushka. The Rebbe Chaya Bushka was a very private person, but from those things that we know about her, we hear a sensitivity to others. And a sensitivity to others includes that even if you disagree with someone and you have a different shita, you have a different opinion, the Torah that a person offers and teaches is holy, and you can learn from the Torah. And that's what the Rebbe was doing at this Farbrengen. He was talking about korbanos, sacrifices, and how do you apply the idea of sacrifices in your daily behavior. So he cites the books of Chabad and Breslov, where there's a discussion of this issue. In other words, he extracts the good and important teachings of the Breslover tzaddikim and the Breslover approach to help us in avodas Hashem, in serving God. And the Rebbe Chaya Bushka was the same way. She is the daughter of the previous Rebbe, the Einikol, the granddaughter of the Rebbe Rashab. She comes from Lubavitch stock, from Beis Harav. This is, creme de la creme. And she's our Rebbe's wife. And I don't have to tell you what that means. And both in the beginning, in Tafshin Yud 1950-51, she said to the Rebbe, if you don't take the position of being Rebbe, what will be my father's Hasidim? What will be Lubavitch? And that was pushed him over to accept it. One of the things, maybe the main thing. And so too with the Seforim case, the library case, we all heard her testify and said, my father and everything that he has belongs to Hasidim. And then we have the statement made by the Rebbe when Dov Heiken passed by to be Menachem Ovel to comfort the Rebbe, and he said to the Rebbe something, and the Rebbe says to him in English, people don't know who she really is. What a statement. And of course the statement of Yudalit Kislev, Tafshin Yudalit, the Rebbe's anniversary, 1953, where the Rebbe said that this is the day that I become bound to you. He meant through his wife, because she's the daughter of the Frierdiker Rebbe. You put together all those statements and you think about it, you see the reverence, the elegance of this person, although she was so modest and humble and never was at Farbrengen's really, and never, made a splash, and we never saw her. I mean, the first time I saw her was through a window on Lag BaOmer 1980. I never saw her before, and I grew up in Lubavitch, So the point is that the Seforim of Reb Nachman of Breslov, there's a place for it, and everyone should understand that doesn't mean that you're becoming a Breslover, and doesn't mean you need to go to Uman on Rosh Hashanah, and it doesn't mean you need to do the Tikkunim, the Tikkun HaKlali, all those things. We have our Mahalach, we have our approach, which is a valid approach, and Breslover have their approach, which is also a valid approach. And when we have this attitude, and we go with real love and real Ahavas Yisrael, and we look at things this way, and we stop imposing the way our opinion on other people, and we let people breathe, like the Rebbetzin did. She let people breathe. She gave people space. People then want to know more about it and get involved. May Hashem help that it should be this way, and we will continue one more segment in Hashem next week with Breslov and Chabad. Seid gesund, have a great Shabbos, and we'll all receive the Torah. It's Parshas Yisroi, Matan Torah, the Aseres HaDibros, the 10 Commandments this Shabbos, and we'll go with these 10 Commandments. Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, Anoichi, not Ani, but Anoichi, Atzbos Mahus, as it says in Chassidus, the essence of God, Hashem Elokecha, is experienced through the 10 Commandments and everything that is there, which is the entire Torah. Shalom and a good Erev Shabbos.